Good morning, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to our faculty presentation. My name is Deborah Cordigiani, and I'm your new assistant principal. I'd like to especially extend a welcome to our newest faculty members by letting them know a little bit about Seymour Middle School. Hopefully by now you realize that we are a school that teaches grades 6th, 7th, and 8th. And we are located in a special area in that it's partly urban and partly suburban. So we have students from the central city part of our town, but we also have students from the outlying suburban areas. Our school is a small school. We have about 400 students, and then we have about 45 gifted and talented teachers such as yourself. So welcome to our team. Before we begin, I'd like to remind us about why we got into this profession and how important this profession is, and how you may not realize the impact you have on a student while you're teaching them, but you do, and it stays with them for a long time. So to that end, I wanted to share with you part of a speech that was made by Donovan Walker. He gave the commencement speech at the Harvard School of Education, the graduate school, and in it he talks about how important his 7th grade teacher was for him, about who he is today, and his ideas about education.
My past alone won't allow me to sit still, so my body, like my mind, cannot be contained. As educators, rather than raising your voices over the rustling of our chains, take them off, uncuff us, unencumbered by the lumbering weight of poverty and privilege, policy and ignorance. I was in the 7th grade when Miss Parker told me, Donovan, we could put all of your excess energy to good use. And she introduced me to the sound of my own voice. She gave me a stage, a platform. She told me that our stories are the ladders that make it easier for us to touch the stars. So climb and grab them. Keep climbing, grab them. Spill your emotions in the Big Dipper and pour out your soul. Light up the world with your luminous allure. To educate requires Galileo-like patience. Today, when I look my students in the eyes, all I see are constellations. If you take the time to connect the dots, you can plot the true shape of their genius shining in their darkest hour. I look each of my students in the eyes and see the same light that aligned Orion's belt in the pyramids of Giza. I see the same twinkle that guided Harriet to freedom. I see them. Beneath their masks and their mischief exists an authentic frustration and enslavement to your standardized assessments. At the core, none of us were meant to be common. We were born to be comets, darting across space and time, leaving our mark as we crash into everything. A crater is a reminder that something amazing happened right here, an indelible impact that shook up the world. Are we not astronomers searching for the next shooting star? I teach in hopes of turning content into rocket ships, tribulations into telescopes, so a child can see their true potential from right where they stand. And injustice is telling them they are stars without acknowledging the night that surrounds them. Injustice is telling them education is the key while you continue to change the locks. Education is no equalizer. Rather, it is the sleep that precedes the American dream. So wake up, lift your voices until you patch every hole in a child's broken sky. Wake up, every child, so they know of their celestial potential. I've been the black hole in a classroom for far too long, absorbing everything without allowing my light to escape. But those days are done. I belong among the stars, and so do you. And so do they. Together, we can inspire galaxies of greatness for generations to come. So no, sky is not the limit. It is only the beginning. Lift off.
What an inspirational speech that reminds us of the honor we have to teach these students, the privilege and the responsibility. So, how do we make it so that students can reach their full potential and reach for the stars? I'm going to talk about the importance of a learning community. Now, obviously, our school is a learning community, but within the classrooms, I want you to establish a learning community, a social community where knowledge is individually owned and group owned. So social interaction is very important to learning. One student has knowledge, another has another piece of knowledge, and together they build more knowledge. They can also co-construct meaning together. So this social interaction between the students and between you as well really is important for increasing their learning potential. It also allows students to use higher order thinking skills. So when you're thinking of your classroom, I want you to think of it as a learning community. And as an expression of that, I'd like to see some more class discussions taking place where you might pose the initial question, but then the students take over from there with you keeping it in order in that when it's necessary, you'll clarify. When you see that students are agreeing or disagreeing, you might point that out. But you'll have some open discussions where a student will pose a question and another student will answer that question. Believe me, these students really acquire knowledge much better than if you were just lecturing to them or they were just listening to you. So I'd like to see that social interaction in learning in your classroom. And speaking of the particular individual students in your class, I want to point out a few things. As I mentioned, this is a very diverse student body. So I want to talk about the importance of culturally relevant teaching. So with culturally relevant teaching, each student realizes their importance in the community. It validates their identity and empowers them. So to do that and increase their sense of self-worth and importance, when you choose your materials that you're going to use in your class, I want it to reflect the cultures of the students in the class. To do that, you need to know who's important to them. Who are their heroes? What do they like to do? What do the students like to do in their free time? What kind of music do they listen to? What kind of sports do they like? We need to do that so that we can build a relationship with them and to promote the culture that they have. So you really do need to get to know these students and build a relationship with them. Now, one way to quickly get to know these students is by handing out a survey at the beginning of the school year, which asks them about their interests. That way you can get to know them better more quickly. In your effort to know the students better, I also want you to particularly concentrate on challenging students. There always seems to be one student who wants to challenge us. But if we can get to know them and reach them and build a relationship with them, these students end up being great leaders for the classroom. And once you win them over, you have the entire class because the entire class will follow them. So to engage students more, rather than again lecturing to them, I want some open dialogue between you and them. I want to see some conversations. Please give them praise when appropriate. And again, let's incorporate elements of their culture in our classroom. It's also important for the students in our learning communities to be honored with their multiple intelligences. I'm sure many of you are familiar with Howard Gardner and his idea of multiple intelligences. If you are unaware or forgot, the idea is that there are different ways of demonstrating intelligence. Some of us are very good with linguistics and have strong verbal abilities. Some are gifted in music, some are gifted in movement, some are gifted in interpersonal skills. There are 8, sometimes there are considered to be even more intelligences out there. So when you approach a concept or subject matter in a variety of ways that relate to the multiple intelligences of the students, then you're going to best be able to reach them. When you have projects or assessments, if there is a menu that they can choose from of how they can show you the information they've learned, then they can choose the project or assessment that appeals to their multiple intelligence so that they can best demonstrate what they've learned. So I'd like to see you offering projects and assessments in different ways, and that appeal to different intelligences, and to share or to teach or instruct using different modes of expressions of multiple intelligences. And again, not only do the students have different multiple intelligences, obviously they have different levels of ability. So I think it's important for you to differentiate instruction. Don't shoot for the middle, because you're going to lose a lot of students that way. You want to deliver information that appeals to their learning styles and their interests, and you found this out by building those relationships or giving out that survey. And I want you to, when I say differentiate instruction, I also don't mean that I want you to dumb down information. It's important that all the students get the big ideas. But when you have tasks, you can vary them by the level of complexity depending on the level of where your students are at. And if you have struggling students, you can do things like scaffold information to help them. You can work with differentiated instruction. You could have homogeneous groups where you group students by ability level, or heterogeneous levels where you specifically want to pair stronger students with weaker students. It depends on the task you're trying to do. So I'll be looking for examples of groups at times when I go into your classes. Another great way to do this is with stations. You can have different stations set up, and you can have your groups, and you don't give them a name, but or if they have a fun name they want to use, you could do that, but you could just give them a color name, and when they go to their stations, they look for the folder for their color group, and there'll be directions about how they're supposed to approach the task in the station, and you can differentiate the level of ability with that. I'd like you to also test for prior knowledge. Some students may know the material that you're about to cover, and you don't want to waste their time reteaching what they already know. You can give them more difficult tasks and then concentrate with the students who have not acquired that initial knowledge. And so again, looking for personalization a bit, where you can give choices to students when appropriate. You can have choice boards where they can choose the tasks, and you can also give varying levels of difficulty to your assessments. So active students. I want to see the students being active. They learn much more by doing than being passive receivers of knowledge. They need to work with the material that they're learning. They need to do different things with it, and they need to have the opportunity to question and discuss. And debates are lively, engaging activities. I've seen students really get into debating. It really catches their attention, especially if you give them an authentic problem to solve, and I'll talk about authentic learning in a few minutes. So to see that, I would like to see examples of this by students teaching other students, discussions, small group activities. I mentioned debates and workshops, and give them activities or tools that allow them to focus their attention through visualization. So graphic organizers such as Venn diagrams or concept maps or idea maps really help the students to focus with their active learning, and give them the ability to reflect on their assessments, either written or with you verbally. All of us can teach students to learn how to learn. So learning doesn't just include the content that you are teaching in your class, but we need to give them tools that allow them to learn how to learn knowledge in all of their classes and all of their topics. And so we need to focus them, get the students focused and engaged, and expose them to a lot of different learning strategies. They need to know when to use certain strategies, like when to, for example, use a glossary or when to use a thesaurus. They need to want to use these skills, and we've got to show them how important it is. They need direct instruction and schematic knowledge. So things that we would like to see in your classroom is teaching students how to make outlines, underlining important information, reading strategies. So it doesn't have to just take place in language arts. Teach them how to, for example, look at headings and in their textbooks or their books, how to take notes, how to use the pictures and the graphs to help them in their understanding. So teaching students how to learn will go a long way in allowing them to reach their full potential. When you are teaching your students, I want them to be creating generative knowledge. So generative knowledge means they're taking their previous knowledge and they're applying it to new learning experiences, and they're expanding on what they know. They're transferring their learning. It creates new knowledge to understand new situations and solve unfamiliar problems. So they need to be able to achieve this, they need to be able to elaborate and question what they learn and be able to examine the new information in relation to the other information that they have. And this way they're building structures of knowledge. So I'm looking for students to be elaborating on what they're writing and question what they're told, and seeing ways in which they're examining their new content in relation to familiar content. I mentioned before, now I'm going to talk about authentic learning. What is authentic learning? Authentic learning is learning that allows them to apply what they learn in their real life and beyond the classroom walls, because this is a great way to engage the students in the curriculum. So they are practicing skills for real life conversations. I would expect to see examples of this by students producing conversation and products and performances that have meaning to them beyond your classroom walls. So activities would require higher order thinking, and I'd like you to give your students deep knowledge in just a few categories. I don't want a smattering, I wouldn't like to see a smattering of superficial knowledge, but we want to see deep knowledge in topics and substantial conversations, and with all of this, connecting that to the world beyond the classroom and applying them to public and personal problems. Let's talk about teaching for understanding and understanding by design. Of course, we always want to teach for understanding, but what I mean is we can teach students your discrete things within a larger framework. This is much more meaningful for them, and they can make connections that increase their overall knowledge. So to do that, I'd like to see you create integrative units in your lesson plans. That maybe it doesn't just cover, if you're a science teacher, it doesn't just cover science, but you might want to bring in social studies, language arts, math, different content other than just what you're teaching. It's much more meaningful for the students. You can enforce this with small group activities, and again, help focus their knowledge with visualization, graphic diagrams, brainstorming. Again, this can be done with your workshops where students get to choose what they do. We're putting it all together here and give them authentic experiences which connect it to the real world. And again, the opportunity to reflect. So we're making connections within a larger framework and utilizing all the other elements that we've just discussed. Now, students learn through active teaching. So it's not just active students, but it's active teachers. So when you teach, and I know that many of you do this already, I want you to set classroom learning goals so students can focus on performance targets and know how to achieve them. So your students should be able to say in their own words, what is the goal of the learning goal of the classroom today? When you instruct, I want you to demonstrate the skills and explain concepts and assignments, have participatory activities. So don't just rely on textbooks. That doesn't usually result in much active learning. And just stress the concepts and understanding. So I've given you a lot of information about what we can do to improve the students' learning. And students also learn best from teachers who improve their capacity. So now I'm going to talk about teacher learning. Okay, I want to make sure that you all receive professional development, and I want the professional development to be meaningful for you. So when we have a professional development in the district, it will be about what affects your teaching directly. So if there's something that you feel that you could, that a workshop, for example, that you could attend that would improve your learning techniques and your learning knowledge, we have forms for you to fill out, or request forms, and please fill them out and I'll review them. And I'll do my best to get you the professional development that you need. I also want to see us improve our capacity through teacher collaboration. It's kind of the same idea that we were discussing at the beginning with the learning communities for our students in the classroom, that one student has knowledge and another has knowledge, and together we build more knowledge. It's the same for adults and it's the same for teachers. So if we collaborate together, we together have a greater knowledge source. And a lot of you study research. There's so much research out there. It's too much for one person to do alone. So if you work together, you can build more knowledge and more meaning, and construct new knowledge. So I want to talk a little bit about the expectations I have of teachers. I would like to further promote this idea of learning communities by having you all actually assume the role of supervisor. I want you to work with one another to improve your practice. You could go into each other's classrooms with each other's permission, and a teacher could ask your colleagues, what do you think that I'm doing well, what needs to be improved. I want you to be involved in shaping and implementing and evaluating our supervisory program that we will be using. And of course, continue to be active in your professional learning committees. So, to the end of the idea of us working together as communities, I have created 5 committees. I want you to commit yourself to lifelong learning, and here we go by starting with our committees. So I've got a curriculum committee, an effective teaching committee, effective learning, supervision and staff development committee, and an assessment committee to review scores. I have papers up at the front here with the title of the committee there, and I'd like you to sign up for the committee that interests you the most. What you can expect from me is more time to elaborate. I want you to build your capacity. So I'm going to be working with the Board of Ed to give you more time. And I will also be coming into your classrooms, but I am not coming in just to judge or slam you. I'm coming in to see what you could improve on and what you're doing well, and those evaluations will not be part of your formal evaluation. There will be formal evaluations, but I will let you know when I'm coming in. So let's work together to renew our commitment to reach for the stars with our students and for ourselves. Thank you.